puts the bullet on the table and the 10 grand. He says, pick one. I said, really? We're going to go there? I'm saying inside my head, this guy didn't get the memo that he's really in dangerous territories if he thinks he's going to shake down the most powerful people in the world that are behind my attorney partner.
We all have crazy restaurant stories from our careers in hospitality, either working for someone else or with our own businesses. And today's guest is no exception. He's an illustrious New York City restaurateur operating in arguably one of the most competitive restaurant towns on the planet. He actually has a 25,000 plus square foot restaurant, which he'll tell us all about. But mostly his message is about playing by his own rules, creating his own luck and destiny, and not being intimidated by the obstacles that get in our way. So you're not going to want to miss this. Crazy stories, best practices, it's all here. Don't miss it. One caveat to this episode, folks. It's uncensored and contains adult language. It's not the episode to listen to with the kiddos in the car. And make sure you stay until the very end. You're not going to want to miss all the crazy stories that Stratis has to share.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Listen, I am a huge believer that service is your restaurant's greatest competitive advantage. But we all know that service takes time and commitment. Dedication. Well, what if there was a training tool, a single tool that was completely customized to your restaurant brand, your menu? Let's start with photos of the plate presentations, ingredients, romance notes, allergens, everything that's important that your staff need to know to present and bring to life your menus for your guests. That includes your wine and beer list, specialty cocktails, everything at their fingertips. Imagine in the back of house that cooks, your new prep cooks or anyone can instantly look at the photos, a list of ingredients with prep times and cooking steps, all the important things to produce each dish to perfection. Imagine there's also table layouts of every dining space in your restaurant with table numbers and even seat numbers, because we all know how important it is to deliver the right dish to the right guest. This is a tool designed to enhance hospitality in your restaurant, not replace it. Learn more at servenow.com. That's SRVNOW.com. Check it out. Not answering your phone is one of the quickest ways for your restaurant to lose a potential customer. But between serving in-person customers and dealing with the kitchen, it's hard for staff to prioritize incoming calls. That's why your restaurant needs Pop Menu answering. Simple questions that keep your phone line tied up can be handled without pulling a staff person from your in-person hospitality. Reclaim the power of your phone. Pop Menu answering is powered by artificial intelligence to answer the simple questions most people call in with, like, do you have outdoor seating, or what are your hours? Within the Pop Menu platform, you can customize answers for your restaurant and choose the voice your guests hear, plus create customized greetings. Pop Menu answering picks up your phone 24/7, 365 days a year, turning every phone call into an opportunity. Plus, Pop Menu's full collection of tools helps optimize your restaurant's website and menu, streamlines your ordering experience, and assists in retargeting to enable you to build long-lasting relationships with your guests. Get help answering your restaurant's calls now with Pop Menu answering. And for a limited time, my listeners can get $100 off their first month plus an unchanging monthly rate at popmenu.com/rockstars. Go now to get $100 off your first month at popmenu.com/rockstars. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. With me today, Mr. Stratis Morfogen, and he is a restaurateur, an investor, an entrepreneur, an author, really interesting guy. Welcome to the show, Stratis. How are you today?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely great having you. You're coming at us from the eastern end of Long Island, a place I know well. Tell us about where hospitality and the passion for restaurants really began with you.
Well, I'm a third generation restaurateur. My grandfather immigrated here in 1895. My real last name was Morfogenis, but he had to cut the IS off because when he signed his first restaurant lease in 1905, Morfogenis wouldn't cut it. So he wanted to sound a little bit more white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, German, and he went with the name Morfogen by cutting off the IS. And there he opened up Pappas, and Pappas became a big hit from 1910 to 1975. 10 years after his death, the restaurant still continued. And, so I grew up in that business. And then from my father, started in 1956, he had up to 14 restaurants. And basically those restaurants were from steakhouses, seafood houses, Greek diners, catering halls. I really had a touch of everything, and I worked in all of them. So I knew at 4 to 6 years old that this is what I wanted to do.
That's a really early beginning. So obviously it got under your skin, and the passion and the pride runs deep, and you've got a number of experiences. Let's talk about the Fulton Fish Market, because you did something really interesting there when the internet was in its infancy, and ta-da, tell us that story.
Well, it's funny. In regards to my book, it starts off with, I'm 6 years old and I'm at the Fulton Fish Market, and I describe it as Disney World for me. That was my Disney World. And literally, my mother, when I was around 7, said, I'm taking your brother and sister to Disney World for the week. And I said, no, Dad's got the truck this week and I want to go to Fulton Fish Market with him. So I rejected Disney World to actually go to the Fulton Fish Market. I think I was 7 years old, and my father realized at that point, restaurant is really going through my blood. So I started very young at the Fulton Fish Market. And that's what leads to your question, is that the networking that the Morfogens were the biggest buyers in the Fulton Fish Market for about 30, 40 years. My Uncle George was the buyer for the Oyster Bar in Grand Central. My father had 9 restaurants at any given time. And my Uncle Gus had the Moby Dick, which was a big seafood restaurant on Madison and 84th. And when they all came together at the Fulton Fish Market, they became like, a Greek unit where every one of the purveyors really like rolled out the red carpets when the Morfogen brothers and cousins walked through the market. And that gained a lot of respect for the true owners of the market. And that was the Genovese family. They ran the Fulton Fish Market. Mm-hmm. And, as the FBI might say that this one and this one were criminals, I looked at them as extended family. When I would say Ali Shades, Mangano, when I would see all these guys, they weren't to me anything more than extended family. So growing up in that age, I learned about the Fulton Fish Market. I learned, when, in my book, I talk about when the police used to come into my school in 2nd grade and tell me about policing and what it is to be a responsible citizen. Well, they left something out. They left it out when, you pull up to the Fulton Fish Market and you don't give the gangster $40 to park your car. He sticks an ice pick in your tire. And literally a block away are police sitting around a hot garbage can of fire, keeping their hands warm. And they're actually witnessing this. So I used to look at the policemen coming into my school and telling us these stories. And I would look at them like, this is bullshit. This is not true. This is not what goes on in the real world. And from 6 to 10 years old, I learned about the real world really, really quickly.
Some people would call that street smarts, and what an indoctrination into how life really works. But especially in a place like, those tight-knit communities of Lower Manhattan. And I'm hearing that the Disney World comparison for you was the sights, the sounds, the smells, energy, the people, the whole vibe of that place, and what that meant to the greater world.
Yeah, I was addicted to the energy.
Yeah,
I was addicted. It was such a fast pace. This. Let me see. My father was the best. My father knew that the fish on top of the box was the good one, and the fish under the box was crap. So they knew he would take a whole 60-pound box with his hook and throw it on the scale before he bought that box of fish, and then he started throwing all the bad ones out. And then lo and behold, all the buyers knew that they couldn't screw over John, Peter, George, and George number 2, Morfogen. Because these guys knew their business. And I learned all this because I'm just taking this in. I'm watching my father fight over an 800-pound box of halibut. Herb Slavin, who's a legend down there, was saying, 85 cents, you dumb Greek, 85 cents. And my father's like, I can curse on this, right?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, because I want to do it verbatim. Fuck you, you Jew. And I couldn't believe this language. I'm like, my God, this is what my dad is saying. This is what Herb Slavin's saying, you damn Greek. And they're fighting over a nickel. So I pop out a nickel out of my pocket and I give it to him. I said, Dad, take the nickel. Take it if you need it that bad. He pulls me over to the side, throws me on top of a box of halibut, with my pants all wet. And he goes, we're talking about 800 nickels. Yep. And these were lessons. This was my math class. Yes. This was my math class in the market. And then at the end of the day, Herb Slavin and John Morfogen were out having drinks the night after, as friends. But down in the market, it was all gloves off. Their polite and mannerisms were awful. They would say such harsh words to each other. You thought they hated each other, but then the next day they're having dinner and drinks and laughing. And that's how I was brought up in the market. And then parallel to that, my dad had a restaurant in Howard Beach where the best customer was Carlo Gambino. So at 6, 7 years old, I'd be working as a busboy. And he'd walk in there to his same table every 3 or 4 nights a week. And he would have this 5 or 6 guys around him. And, you know, I always saw how my father and all the managers treated him. Oh, Mr. Gambino's here, Mr. Gambino, get him his drink, get him his table. And I'm like, wow,
VIP service.
This guy is important, you know?
Yeah,
so I
right.
walked to the table one day and I wanted to be involved in that. I wanted to be a part of this. So I'm pouring him water and I said, hi, Mr. Gambino. And the whole table just shuts up. Because here's a guy that's gone so far out of the way to be indiscreet, to have discretion where no one knows who he is.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, this 6-year-old chubby busboy knows his last name. The table went silent. And I said, oh, what did I do wrong? I still remember that time.
Yeah.
He goes, come here, kid. I sit next to him. He goes, how's school? I said, school's good. And he goes, and he tips me a $20 bill, which is like $200 today. We're talking about 1973.
Back then. Right.
73.
Yep.
And he goes, high is good enough. And then he goes, go on your way. And I was like, and then as I'm leaving, all the guys started laughing. You know, and I'm like, what did I do? I just said, yeah, I thought I was being gracious. And my father explained to me that we call him sir. And we say hi because we never mention his name. He likes to just be called sir. That's as much information I needed at 6, 7 years old.
Valuable lesson.
Yeah. And discretion always played well with me because, you know, fast forward to 2009 when I've owned Philippe Chow, John Paulson's about to do a hostile takeover of Bank of America. And they're in my private dining room. And I'm there and I'm actually seeing the PowerPoint of what they're going to do the next morning on doing a hostile takeover for billions and billions of dollars. You know, who sees that? You know, if I was corrupt, I would be freaking, I would be buying up the stocks on that, you know, but that's what we see in the restaurants. And we have to, I learned at a very young age about discretion. And discretion is key to running a successful business, especially a restaurant business. But now getting back to your question, Fulton Fish Market became extended home to me. I knew everybody there. And in 1997, when I was introduced to the internet, I knew that was the future. I actually jumped up and down and I begged all other restaurateurs at the time, take this thing serious. You guys have 5, 10, 15 restaurants, and all you have is a business card and a store locator on your website. This is not what this is about. This is about interaction. This is about engaging with your guests. It's about content, photographs, information. And then eventually they'll be able to buy online, let them, buy a t-shirt, buy a hat, whatever. Eventually you'll be able to order your food online. That's going to come in the years to come. They all called me crazy. And I said, well, that's what's going to happen. So, I stuck my money where my mouth is and I opened Fulton Market, FultonStreet.com. And that was 1997. And I worked it off an AOL server. I had about 3 employees. And then we were buying the fish in the market. We were bringing it to a packaging facility. We would pack it up, dry ice, pretty much like an Omaha Steaks for fish. And
visionary, some people would say you could see around corners because you could see trends before they began. You didn't see it as a trend. You saw it as the future of the world way back then, right? 1997, it's like, okay, the web is now a thing and people are starting websites and very few people really understood how it would work and what the long-term value of it would be. But it sounds like you instantly recognized that value and you saw an opportunity to move that whole enterprise forward in a different way.
And it saddens me to say that one of my friends owned about 125 sporting goods stores, right?
Yep.
And I told him in 97, I said, listen, I'm not going to mention his name, but I said to him, hey, you got to take this web thing serious. You're way ahead of Amazon. This thing called Amazon is going to come and they're going to start doing sporting goods. They just made an announcement. They're going into other things but books. You need to jump ahead of this thing. You got 125 stores. You can use these stores for returns, for same-day delivery. Imagine same-day delivery.
Crazy.
And he's like, this was the answer I got. He said, if you think people are going to buy jerseys and hats and a baseball glove through this computer, you've lost your mind. I said, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you one more thing. They're going to be able to buy cars without seeing them, and they're going to buy houses without seeing them from this computer that you're talking about. So with that said, they're going to buy jerseys because if they can't touch the jersey, they're not going to buy it. I said, BS. They're going to buy the jersey because they don't want to get out of there. They want it on their terms. They don't want to be going to your store to shop. They want to shop on this thing called the computer, called the internet, and they're going to want you to ship it to them. You can do same day delivery. You've got the stores. He laughed me out the table, laughed me. He said, all I needed is this for a location finder for my 125 stores. And you know what I said to him?
Yeah.
This is 1997. I said, in 25 years with this attitude, you're going to be bankrupt. He's like, we have a $1.7 billion valuation. They want us to go public. You've lost your mind. And this computer compared to my 125 stores,
yes.
And guess what? He went bankrupt in 2020.
And the lesson there is innovate or die, stay relevant or you're toast, which leads me to my next question. So you are a well-known, accomplished lifetime restaurateur. You learned the business from the ground up, working, I'm hearing, pretty much every position. You met influential people from an early age. And now I can't think of a more competitive, maybe San Francisco would be a close second, but what is a more competitive restaurant town than Manhattan? And think about how restaurants come and go practically every minute. How do you stay relevant and stay ahead of the curve and keep innovating and develop a celebrity clientele that 1 minute you're hot and the next minute some other place is hot? How do you maintain that relevance?
I mean, everything you've just said basically describes my life.
Yes.
From the pitfalls and the successes and the failures, it's all been part of my journey. And that's what I put in my book, Be a Disruptor, because everything I've ever done, I've disrupted it. I did a Greek diner. My father had a Greek diner. I did my version of a diner called Gotham Diner. It was a 3-star New York Times chef, and it was called Gotham Diner. And I was inspired by the Fog City Diner. Funny that you say San Francisco.
Yes, I'm familiar.
But I wanted to do my diner with a 3-star New York Times chef, but still have eggs and burgers. And that was in 1993. When later on, when I created Philippe Chow, I basically took the chef out of Mr. Chow, and I wanted to create my version of fancy Chinese food, but I wanted to be relevant with the entertainment industry. So I was playing from Neil Young to Grateful Dead to Led Zeppelin to the Bee Gees in a dining room, which was never heard of before, in a fine dining atmosphere where people were paying about $100 a person in 2005. Mm-hmm. And you're hearing Led Zeppelin and Grateful Dead and Pink Floyd, but that was my vision of how I wanted to create my Chinese restaurant. And that became a gangbuster success. It was the highest grossing restaurant in America for 7 years straight. And I sold that in 2014. And basically, I took 3 years off, spent more time with my kids. And I came up with this concept of, my wife and I would go to a steakhouse and she didn't eat beef. But, she would sit there with a lobster and a towel or a piece of fish and parsley and cream mm-hmm. of spinach and a baked potato. And there I am sitting with a big porterhouse. And I'm saying, wow, something's wrong with this. And here I am. I've had Chinese restaurants at that point for about 9 years. And I said, you know what? I said, wouldn't it be cool if the porterhouse remained the same, dry aged 35 days, but we married it with salt and pepper lobster and Peking duck and Beijing chicken and funky dumplings. Let's go, instead of just a regular pork, shrimp, or crab dumpling, let's do pastrami. Let's do Reuben. Let's do bacon cheeseburger. Let's do peanut butter and jelly. Instead of a soup, let's do French onion soup zao bang. Let's do French onion soup dumplings. Let's do lobster bisque dumplings. And then the whole thing basically went bananas, where I married Beijing Chinese with an authentic American steakhouse, staying true to each culture. And again, before we launched Brooklyn Chop House, I noticed at that point, either we're going to screw this up by confusing everybody, or this will be innovation and disruption at its highest point. Because remember, the Chop House came with the Irish immigrants in the 1850s in New York, and they all settled in Brooklyn. And basically after that, the menu never really changed that much. It actually morphed into steakhouse, but Chop House and Steakhouse to this day, you still have the same side dishes: cream of spinach, baked potato. And unfortunately, one of the top steakhouse got a scathing review because it said, hey, the steak is great, but everything else seems like an orphan. Everything else seems like an afterthought. And what I wanted to do is make the co-stars just as good as the star. And the star being the dry aged meats that I get from Pat LaFrida, 35 days. I age everything. I wanted the co-stars to be just as important and relevant.
As
So what I
important.
created was LSD. So, people said, LSD, what do you, I said, yeah, we're going to do a culinary trip and we're going to make everything about Brooklyn Chop House. The sub tag is going to be LSD. Like, what is LSD? I said, lobster, steak, and duck. And that's it. And then we could do lobster, steak, and dumplings. At the end of the day, it's lobster,
cool.
steak, and duck, and it's dim sum and chops. It's Roger, it's been hashtagged so many times on Instagram, hashtag LSD. I got a letter from the feds telling me that I'm under investigation for the promotion of narcotics. Instagram was forced to remove hashtag LSD.
It's an acronym, for God's sake.
If you go on Instagram today, hashtag LSD does not work. It was hashtagged over about 3,800 times in a year.
Wow.
From our restaurant and the customers.
Yeah.
And they shut it all down. That was marketing legendhood to me. I finally achieved it when they took down a hashtag, and LSD has become a phenomenal success. And then when you add our funky dumplings, it becomes a unique experience where we hashtag no place on earth but Brooklyn Chop House, where you can get Chinese fused in with an American steakhouse and great dumplings.
There's so many lessons here about creativity and innovation and just zigging when everyone else is zagging, that literally captures notoriety in a big way, and things go viral and it captures their imagination, and I'm sure you're a big believer in hooks in your restaurants. You've already mentioned a couple of examples of those. It's like, if our goal is to up level this industry, it's to take all the stories and the experiences that you've had and just give people a new idea that they say, wow, I can do something like that. I can innovate. I can do what my competition is not doing, because really it's such a competitive industry. And you're obviously a really resourceful, creative guy with celebrity behind them and notoriety and all these things, which help up level a business and help you stay relevant.
Absolutely.
But for the average operator out there that is running a restaurant, not running a business, running a restaurant, not building a brand, it's like, what advice would you give them to sort of disrupt their own business and, their own restaurant, and turn it into more of a business and a brand? Because not everybody can do that. And it is so important to the success and the longevity of your operation. Don't you think?
Yeah, to answer the first part of your question regarding celebrity, my restaurant now is in 30 hip hop tracks. And it's from Jay-Z to Fabulous to Rick Ross to Nas. Every rapper you could imagine is rapped about my restaurant.
That's
and when you hit that kind of notoriety, it becomes a cultural phenomenon.
Yes.
But my advice and I've been doing this all COVID long. I've actually been teaching 4 universities entrepreneurship. I do it on my dime because I like to help, because I like people. And that's why I wrote Be a Disruptor. I'm trying to avoid people to make the same mistakes I made, and I like speaking to young people, young entrepreneurs, and try to guide them where it's like me taking my body and going back to the 25-year-old Stratis and what I would have done differently. But there's 2 answers to that. Right now, I'll tell you, I wouldn't have changed a thing, because those failures were actually an education for me. But what I tell restaurateurs today, I said, you know what? It's not easy to get celebrities in there. It's taken me 35 years of relationships to have my restaurant full of celebrities. But that's, at the end of the day, I treat celebrities the same way I treat my everyday customers. They're all VIPs to me. And we don't do favoritism, and everybody gets a bill. I never comp a celebrity. Clinton, Obama, Trump, and Gore, they all pay. They've all paid their bills. And I got to tell you, my little thing is, I take their credit card receipts and I use it for my scrapbook. And that's so one day I'll give it to my great grandchildren.
Right.
And then you could imagine if you could get like Kennedy or Roosevelt on what they ate and signed credit card. I got it from Roger Waters to Mick Jagger to David Bowie to Oprah to all the presidents. And I have it in a scrapbook. One day I'll leave for my grandkids one day. But putting that aside,
that's awesome.
I tell young restaurateurs that, take your social media very serious. Mm-hmm. Don't look at it as an afterthought. I answer every customer that goes on my restaurant's Instagram and inquires about something, because to me, that's fish in a barrel. When people outsource it to like 3rd world countries to answer their Instagrams or answer their social media, they're not understanding the opportunity. The opportunity is right there in front of them. You got guests that are circling like sharks, circling. They're interested in your product, and you're going to have a 3rd-party guy in India or
outsourced
in Africa or Asia that's going to answer them. No, the only person that should be answering it is you or the manager that walks around the dining room of your restaurant. To that capacity, that person should be answering and be all over social media to answer questions. Because to me, outsourcing never made any sense to me. Talking about FultonStreet.com, we were featured in Customers.com by Patricia Sebold. That was like the iconic book of the time, Customers.com. And the author was Patricia Sebold, who was an icon in customer service. FultonStreet.com, with its AOL server and 5 employees at the time, was featured up with Southwest Airlines, Wells Fargo, and Amazon as the best in customer service in the first generation of the internet. I mean, she said, and she even said they're working on an AOL server. But when I placed my order, I got an email from a person that said, it went out there. Hi, Mrs. Sebold. Thank you for your order. My name is Stratis. Blah, 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 on and on and on and on. If you need anything else, here is my cell phone. Now, all of a sudden, because you got to remember the early part of the internet, people were scared about credit cards. But when you see, our goal was to put our hand right through the screen and shake the customer's hand. When you do that, especially early on, Patricia Sebold was blown away by the customer service. And that's what I'm telling young restaurateurs today. You may not have the budgets. You got your asses kicked by these corrupt politicians. And that's another conversation. But you know what? You still have your intellectual property. That's what they can't take away from you. But when you have your restaurant, take social media, especially Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and Facebook very seriously, and make sure someone that is educated in your menu and your customer experience is answering the questions, not some outsourced person, not some intern. Because if that, you're not understanding the business. To understand the business is you need to roll up your sleeves and make sure that I fall asleep at night, Roger, answering customers. I'm answering off my phone or my iPad, and I wake up in the morning and it's sitting in my lap. And one day, it's very funny. 3:30 in the morning, someone said, "Hey, what kind of steak is this?" And I said, "Oh, it's a tomahawk, 32-ounce branded Brooklyn Chop House." And he's like, "Oh, you know what? This is 3:30 in the morning and I'm getting an answer. I didn't expect an answer tomorrow. I'm going to tell Stratis how good you are." And I'm like, "This is Stratis." And they're like,
blown away.
Bullshit.
Blown away.
This is not Stratis at 3:30 in the morning answering me, who has over 100 restaurants. I said, "This is me." I took a picture of me in bed with my pajamas on and I sent it to him. I said, "Does this prove it's me?"
That's awesome.
He's like, can I just repost this? I go, "Go ahead."
That's awesome.
"I cannot believe you're answering me at 3:30 in the morning."
Rock stars. You know, paying bills is one time-consuming restaurant detail in 1,000 other details. With Plate IQ, your accounts payable is handled accurately and automatically. Plate IQ works with 30,000 restaurants of all types, eliminating manual data entry in your accounts payable process. Technology takes care of line item general ledger coding to invoice payment through Plate IQ's Vendor Pay network. Now, no more paper checks. Your restaurant can seamlessly flow from invoice upload to payment and even earn cash back from paying over 180,000 vendors in the network on time. Plate IQ is your paperless digital filing cabinet that frees your workspace from invoices, receipts, and statements. You can search anytime by date, item, or vendor. See when everything is due and manage schedules, approvals, payments, and filing right from your mobile. Pay digitally by check, ACH, or your Plate IQ card. Best of all, no money leaves your account until it's received by your vendor, which improves your cash flow and cuts confusion. It's time to check out Plate IQ at plateiq.com. Well, now you're talking about hospitality, touching guests in a personal way, and now using that hospitality or hospitality as an extension to your social media, because it translates from the guest experience live in your restaurant, an online review later, just the whole trajectory of the experience is all about hospitality, which is pretty remarkable. Let's talk about, you opened Brooklyn Chop House right in the middle of the pandemic. What was that like? What happened?
So actually, no. So we opened Brooklyn Chop House in 2018.
Oh, okay.
And we built it up to, well, not really. Because we
tell us the story.
We did a big COVID deal during COVID.
Okay.
So we opened in 2018 and we launched the LSD dumpling concept of Brooklyn Chop House. When I asked my Chinese chefs, when you think of chop house, what do you think of? They're like chop suey, chop sticks, hack pork, chop pork. Chopper's a respected position in the kitchen.
Right.
I'm like, really? And this was my chef from Philippe Chow. Now he's with me at Brooklyn Chop House. I said, Chef Skinny, I had to call him Skinny. I said, I think lamb chop, pork chop. And he goes, what? No. He's like, no way, with a really strong Chinese accent. No, chop suey, chop sticks. I said, that's it. Two cultures look at the word chop house in two completely different meanings.
Yes.
And that's why we fused this all together. So Brooklyn Chop House was a gangbuster success. And then it wasn't. COVID hit us and we had a, $9 million a year restaurant. Our highest projections were $5 million. And in March 2020, I had basically a restaurant doing $10,000 a week in delivery. And at that point, my partner, Dave Thomas and Robert Cummings and myself, we sat down and said, what do we do here? Morale is at an all-time low, had to lay off 90% of our staff. And I said, you know what? I think we should do something that we can remember and talk to our grandkids about. Let's give it all away. Let's just give it away. Let's give everything we got and let's create like a co-op here and start protecting the healthcare heroes that are keeping us safe and on the lines, because it's a war now. We actually went into a few emergency rooms and it looked like what I would imagine what a war would look like.
Yeah,
and
right.
And not just the doctors and nurses, the janitorial staff, the maids, they're cleaning up beds of people that just died from COVID.
Right.
They may bring this home to their families. And I said, we need to do something because no one's doing anything. So we started making gift bags and just handing it anonymously to New York Presbyterian, who are right next to us. And then they started posting stuff on Instagram. Thank you, Brooklyn Chop House. One was 20 feet long and 20 staffers were holding a letter. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. We didn't do it for that, but that's really cool. So we're sending them lobster dinners, steak dinners. We're sending them wine. Junior's Cheesecake gave us 1,000 cheesecakes. We're sending them cheesecakes. And then New York Post said Hero of the Day, March 27, 2020. They called us Hero of the Day. And with that, the big companies like Cisco and all the other big companies came to us and said, hey, how can we be a part of this? I said, donate food. Give us as much as you can so we can up this thing.
Awesome.
Lo and behold,
Great.
in 1 month, we upped it to about 19 hospitals. And
Nice.
from March 2020 to July 2020, we served 8,400 healthcare heroes. And we did it all complimentary.
Yes.
At the end of the day, thank God it didn't cost me that much money because I got it from Cisco. Helped us a lot.
Still,
Cisco Foods.
What a noble effort.
We organized it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, that's a beautiful thing. That's a great story.
Yeah, thank you. And I got to tell you, that's the great story that I'm going to tell my grandkids one day, because to me, that was the most proudest moment of listening. We have hundreds and hundreds of photos of healthcare workers from all different hospitals and one nursing home on Mother's Day and 3 police departments. And they're just saying, thank you. They're dancing with the bags of Brooklyn Chop House. I mean, the most amazing videos and pictures they posted. It actually built the morale of our team again.
Totally.
We actually
I'm sure it did.
Felt good.
Common cause for the common good. And that was again, a remarkable effort for sure.
So what happened at that time, coincidentally, my capitalism hat was open too. I had it nice and shiny. So every other week I would get 2 to 3 offers from landlords that just lost a business or lost a restaurant asking me, hey, would you consider bringing Brooklyn Chop House here? Would you consider another brand? Would you consider bringing back your Greek grandfather's Pappas restaurant? And I just kept on saying no, no, no. And up to about 100 no's, all of a sudden, the Freeland Group offered me to take 25,000 square feet in Times Square. And I said to David Freeland, that's a little too big for me. And those guarantees and all that other stuff that you guys asked for in Times Square.
It's a big, huge space.
Yeah, it's not for little guys like me. He goes, well, we really want Brooklyn Chop House there. Can we meet at the store? So when I get to the store on 47th and Broadway, I'm like, wow, 50-foot ceilings, 5 floors, rooftop, $1 million jumbotron, digital jumbotron outside. It was a Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh.
And I said, David, I'm going to write down what I need to get this deal done.
Yeah.
And I expect never to hear from you again. I still consider you my friend, but business is business. I've got to tell you what we can do here. And together with my partner, Robert and David, we just wrote down all these different things. And we wrote, 8% lease, where Robert came up and said, hey, cap it at $1 million. Capped at $1 million. 8% of our sales will be the rent, capped at $1 million. We want a 25-year lease, which is unheard of in Times Square. We want a COVID clause. A COVID clause means for any socialist governor or mayor in the future that ever decides to shut us down without going to a court of law, we revert to 8% straight with no base rent. If they shut us down, where business interruption doesn't cover it.
Yeah.
And so if business interruption doesn't cover it, then we revert to 8%. If there's any shutdown in hours of operation or capacity of any kind, it drops to 8%. And there's no cap on it. It's until we get reopened again. That's a business interruption who screwed us the first time around, doesn't pick up the bill. I have that in there. Then it comes to the guarantees. Buffalo Wild Wings guarantee was $7 million. I said, no, our guarantee is going to be $100 grand. $100 grand is the only thing I'm going to guarantee on this lease. I need 2 years rent free, and I need a 7-figure check to do the cosmetic overhaul to convert this to a Brooklyn chop house. I wrote it on a piece of paper. I handed it to him. I put my jacket on, and you got to remember, I just got to the square, and it was probably April 2020, and I was the only one in the square at Friday at 2:00. Only one in there at Times Square. It was actually spooky. That it was almost like a bad movie, like that Tom Cruise movie.
I can imagine that.
Only one in the square, and this is New York, March.
Probably March 2020.
April 2020 at around 2:00 on a Friday.
Yeah.
And then, you got to remember, my family's like, are you crazy? We're all hiding out here. We're all like, we were told to stay in our homes and all that. And you're going to go sign 25 years lease. And, my family was very concerned about that idea. But I said, you think New York's going to be like this 2 years from now? It's never going to happen.
Yeah,
so
ground floor opportunity. But you also, there's that seeing around.
Roger, so lo and behold, make a very long story shorter, is that David Friedland said, what's your lawyer's number? And he didn't even counter offer. He basically accepted my terms if I would sign it today or bring it to the lawyers today.
Sure.
And that's how we got 25,000 square feet in Times Square. And we opened exactly 2 years later with Fat Joe and Mary J. Blige hosting an 8-song concert.
Unbelievable. What I was going to say is you're seeing around corners again. And there's another lesson for our audience about, I've got a term, it's called get yourself bulletproof. And that means you've got to be able to anticipate the future. You got to build cash flow so that you are untouchable, so that nothing can harm you. And the pandemic is a prime example that no one could have predicted. But yet you took a risk at a time when a lot of people were just digging in their heels and saying, what are we going to do now? And it's like that was the ultimate pivot to take on something that had such tremendous opportunity down the road and taking that risk. But then having the wherewithal and the resourcefulness and the creativity to say, okay, I need all these clauses, like you talked about, the pandemic clause and all this kind of stuff that literally protect my downside if the downside were ever to happen. So huge lesson there. Thanks for sharing that.
And I go much more in depth in my book, and I explain that this is the only deal that's ever been done in our industry where if I do $5 million a year, I break even, but my projections are 30 million a year. That's never happened because when you project 30 million and if you do 15, it's usually you're out of business. The deal that I created is that if I do 30 million, I'm making a lot of money, but if I do 5 million, I still pay my bills. That's unheard of. And that's how we designed the lease. And then 3 months later, I signed another one for 14,000 feet. And now I'm bringing back my grandfather's restaurant that shut down in 1975. I'm bringing back Pappas Taverna in the West Village.
Awesome.
And I'm doing that with the chef of Milos and Avra. So we're going to do the first wood-burning Greek restaurant. Again, I wanted to disrupt the Greek restaurant.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do the traditional.
Yeah,
and everything really roots, because the old way of Greek cooking was not on a grill. It was in wood-burning ovens with a grill inside it. I'm going back to that style of cooking, which is old school Greek. That's never been done before, because Americans have a tendency to take a great classic model and make it convenient. But old wood-burning cooking is the way Greek cooking was always meant to be and always was.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing that back with Pappas Taverna. And again, I'm disrupting the whole Greek cuisine, the Greek menu, the Greek restaurants.
Restaurant owners and managers, I call this the business of 1,000 details. And you've got more important things to worry about than calculating and paying your monthly sales tax on time. Well, that's where Davo comes in. Davo puts sales tax on autopilot for restaurants. Davo uses sales tax data from your point of sale system to set aside the exact amount of sales tax you collect every single day and then files it and pays it when it's due, on time for your restaurant every month. Davo takes just 5 minutes to set up, and once it's up and running, you never have to worry about paying sales tax again. Davo costs $49.99 per POS connection per month, and your restaurant can try Davo for the first 30 days free. Davo was created by a successful restaurant chef and owner who knows what's important for your operation. Time is money, and you've got more important things to focus on, like pleasing your guests. You can't put a price on peace of mind. Why not try Davo for the first 30 days at DavoSalesTax.com? I've had some amazing experiences on Mykonos and Santorini with real traditional Greek cuisine. And it is about hospitality, and they make you feel like family when you walk in the door. And it's simple, and it's right from the local farm down the road, and the wines and the food. Like, what a cultural experience that is. But that's your heritage.
Yeah, I'm in Mykonos all the time growing up. I mean, you'd see a grandma just painting the tiles on the walkway.
Yeah.
My father always said this, and he ingrained this into my head growing up in the restaurant business. A customer passes 100 doors before they get to yours. And when they finally get to your door, make them feel that much special, because you know what? They had 100 other choices to go to, but they chose you. So you need to reverse that and make them feel like they're the king of the castle, the queen of the hill. And that's how I was brought up, with my mother and father just literally bending over for any customer that walked in. Didn't matter what they looked like, how they were dressed, whatever, how old they were.
Right.
They treated everybody like they were extended family. And lo and behold, every time I had a birthday party where it was like my big fat Greek birthday party, we'd have the waiters and waitresses and the busboys all there as guests. Now, you can't do that today, but that's how it was back then. My parents had the whole restaurant family, all the employees as an extended family. And that's how we were.
Well, there's another key lesson there. And you're speaking from an authentic place in your heart, and you're the guy answering, people at 3:30 in the morning. But there is a concept that I want my audience to constantly keep aware of, and that is the lifetime value of a customer or a guest. And by treating one person like you're talking about treating them, even if they're a first-time visitor, you're treating them like an old friend that you've known forever. You have no idea how much that one person can impact your business, your restaurant, in their own patronage, everyone they tell about that particular service and hospitality, and every online post they might share. And every single person has that kind of exponential power to drive your restaurant forward, or you never see that person again.
There's two parts to that answer. First is, before the internet, you'd only hear about a great restaurant at a nail salon, a barbershop, or the shopping mall, or a party.
Yep.
Or the workplace.
Right.
And that one person could probably catch 5 people that really loved your restaurant. Today, it's folded by 1,000 times. That one person may just have a couple of 100 followers on Instagram. Like some restaurants say, oh my God, if they don't have 50,000 followers, I don't really care. I'm like, what? You're getting greedy, and you're not appreciating the old days. The old days was, if they had 5 people, it was a home run. So if they have 50 followers or 100 followers on Instagram, that's a gold mine. It's a potential gold mine.
It is.
That person, every person is a journalist now. They're going to pick up their phone, take a picture of your food, tag your location to their 50 followers. Are you kidding? That's huge.
It is.
Of course we love the ones with millions of followers, but you know what? The one with 50 is just as important. If you just stay with that philosophy, because if you stay with that philosophy, stay focused and do it month over month, day over day, hour over hour, the thing blows up, because you're constantly putting out a good product and treating a person properly. And as they keep on hitting you on social media, eventually the whole thing blows up to your favor. And
competitive advantage is what that is.
So many times, and another thing I could tell young restaurateurs, put up a neon saying. Some of my neon sayings have gotten 16 million views. Some of my neon sayings have gotten 10 million views, because they take a picture where it says, spread love. It's the Brooklyn way. I have in the ladies' room, my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, taking like rap fun quotes in the ladies' room.
Awesome.
And the ladies are, what are they going to do? It's Brooklyn Chop House at the bottom.
Selfie.
Hashtag Brooklyn Chop House. Selfie. I mean, little stuff like that is not expensive. Come up with a really cool quote. We had one that said, from Andy Wall, said, fall in love with your eyes closed. We put that up on the wall. It got just from Delavangne, a famous model, and Puffy, P. Diddy. It got like 6 million views just from them too. It cost me $1,500 to put it up on the wall. These are the
Priceless.
things that we do. They're priceless, and you have
Priceless.
to do. You have to gear yourself to for the social media, the Instagram, the TikTok generation, because even the classic lamps that we have on our tables now,
Yeah.
they're professional lighting underneath for food production. There's a company that came out and took the traditional beautiful lanterns for your tables and basically put food lighting, like those little round dots that the food bloggers will use.
Enhances the plate presentation of everything delivered to the table.
Oh, we do it before and after. So if you take a picture of all the food on the table without the light on, and then put the light down,
Smart.
Oh my God, it's got a glow. It makes your food look 30% better.
Fantastic idea.
These are the things that restaurateurs should be doing, because this is just, we've got to focus on that. They are going to share this with their guests, and you got to look your best.
Unbelievable. Let's talk about the book. Stratis, you wrote a book, and it's called Be a Disruptor, Streetwise Lessons for Entrepreneurs from Mobs to Mandates. That's quite a title. Take us through it. What are you covering, and what's the crux?
Yeah, so like I said, the mob has been in and out of my life about 3 or 4 times through my career. Started out when I was a kid, all on a friendly level. Then to the Fulton Fish Market, all on a friendly level. But then it turned nasty on me. In 1993, I had a very successful Gotham diner, and we were doing a lot of alcohol business. We had big DJs, and it became like a nightclub, like a diner nightclub after 10, 11 o'clock. So come knocking, or John Gotti Jr.'s thugs come knocking on my door, and they say, we want $5,000 a month. And I said, for what? They said, it's an alcohol tax. I said, an alcohol tax to who? Oh, that's to us. We give you protection, and you got to pay a piece of your alcohol business to us. And they said, you should be thankful, because I know you're doing more than that. And we could probably charge you $10,000 like we charge other places, but we're just going to do $5,000 with you. I said, here's my answer. Go fuck yourself. And that was it. And everybody was
unbelievable.
like, oh. And I said, I'm not afraid of you guys.
Whoa.
I'm telling you to go fuck yourself and get the fuck out of my restaurant.
Yeah, and ace up your sleeve somehow?
No, I didn't at that point, but it
Keep
came.
going. Yeah.
So what they started doing, they beat up 2 of my managers.
Whoa.
And a head of promotions. They beat them to a pulp to that, to go to the hospital. And they kept on coming back, and they're staring at me at the bar. You got the message? And I would say, fuck off, get out.
Whoa.
And that was it. And then eventually I just ignored them. But then they started throwing black paint on all my windows, just to show that if they want to break them, they can break them. But the first warning is they're going to throw black paint and cover my corner store all full of glass. They're going to cover all the glass with black paint. And they started doing that nightly. So as I'm cleaning it one morning, Ralph Coppola, who's the underboss of the Genovese's, is a customer of mine. And I know him, I know through the circles, the Genovese's ran the Fulton Fish Market. All these guys had respect for me, and I respected them. And every time they came to my restaurant, they always paid and never looked for anything special. And that was the relationship I had with these very important, mafia types, bosses and underbosses and captains and all that. All
Sure.
These guys were like my friends, and never asked me for anything except for these thugs. John Gotti crew and his cohorts were a bunch of thugs. And so Rob said, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, they're trying to shake me down." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, Gotti's crew has been here. They shake down everybody on the east side of New York, from strip clubs to mom and pops to nightclubs. They shake everybody down. Everybody pays a mob tax. I refuse to do so." He said, "They're doing that to you?" Because this is a place that these guys frequented like 5 times a week. It was like their second home. Again, always paid. They sat in the back. They had their little dinners and lunches and breakfasts and whatever. Just really nice guys to me. And Ralph Coppola says, "Sit tight." That's all I heard. 2 days later, I got a call from one of his guys and said, "Go to Ferrier Bistro on 65th and Madison and be there at 11 o'clock. I said, "Okay." So I went there at 11 o'clock. I had known the restaurant. I know the owner, Alon. And I knew in the back, all the Gambino capos had a dinner like 4 nights a week in the back. And like the heavy duty guys, like really big, important people.
Gotcha.
Because I'd see them there because I would frequent Ferrier.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so when I get there, Ralph is there with another soldier of the Genovese's named Bucky Carbone, who befriended me years before. And we were actually like on first name basis. And we sit down with these 5 Gambino capos. And Ralph says, "Listen, this guy is around us." And I'm like, I am? Like, I really news to me. But yeah, I just shut my mouth and I listen. This guy is around us. You tell Junior to come correct, because if he continues to harass him, this thing is going to escalate where the five of you at this table will do nothing about it. Can do nothing about it. And I'm like, I didn't realize how big these guys were, because the guys they were talking to, I knew how big they were.
Of course.
These guys were like, so the difference was they were wearing their $3,000 suits. My guys had a Yankee bomber jacket and a baseball hat. But meanwhile, they're the ones that were the most powerful guys in the whole crime world. So within a minute, the capo's like, hey, we know this Greek kid. He's a good kid. We actually go to his place. We'll squash this, Ralphie. Ralphie, we're going to squash this. Don't worry about it. Consider it done. Just tell him, if this continues, where they keep threatening this kid, this thing is going to escalate and it's going to be a problem. And lo and behold, it was squashed.
Fantastic.
Just like that.
And
then when I discussed it with my dad.
Heavy story there, Stratis. That's a heavy story. Wow.
And when I discussed it with my dad, I said, Dad, this is what happened. He's like, be careful. You may have exchanged one devil for another. And I said, I don't know about that. I don't think so. And lo and behold, I was right. They never asked me for anything. They kept on coming to the restaurant. They didn't even ask me to comp them anything for their service. They kept on paying their bills. But fast forward to June 94, I opened up my first nightclub. So with knowing those guys, I met their attorney, Patty Stisso. And Patty Stisso was their general counsel, a legitimate lawyer. And Patty, I needed to raise like $500,000 to take over this old nightclub on 54th and Park Avenue and convert it into a nightclub, because that was my dream. As a kid growing up in Garden City, I wanted to own a nightclub in Manhattan. So Patty put up the $500,000, and basically we were in business together. I knew in the back of my mind that $500,000 was coming from the Genovese guys. Mm-hmm. I knew it because right away I could see that they were involved in the construction. Right. I could see that they were involved in it. And you know what? At that point, I was like, whatever. I know on record and with the state liquor authority, I'm partners with a legitimate person where he disclosed where he got his money. And I saw the checks coming in. And how he got to that point, it's none of my business. That's not my business. And later he got in trouble with the law for laundering money, and he actually did prison time. But that's years later. But putting that aside, I knew that these guys were basically behind it. And I was kind of okay with it, Roger, because I knew if they're going to shake me down at Gotham Diner, which is 2,500 square feet, what are they going to do with 8,000 square feet on Park Avenue? So I knew at the end of the day, having Patty as my partner and having the guys behind me, I was never going to be shaken down. Well, what happened was after the club opened, a Jewish gangster came to me from LA, and he was like the head guy in Los Angeles. He was like the Bugsy Siegel of the time.
Okay.
And he came to me and he sat down with me and he said, listen, I want to be your partner here. I said, I don't need another partner. And he goes, well, you don't understand. You have no choice. I said, we're from LA, but we want to be in the nightclub business in New York City. And we figured you'd be a perfect guy that we want to partner with. And I said, I don't have any interest. And he goes, well, let me put it to you this way. And he writes down on a napkin $10K, on a cloth napkin, which pissed me off because this napkin costs like 10 cents. And he's writing on a cloth napkin with his pen, which was such bad manners. That first thing that really bothered me was
that was a disrespect right there.
Yeah. 10,000. He writes $10,000 and he takes out a gun. He pulls out a bullet, puts the bullet on the table and the 10 grand. He says, pick one. I said, really? We're going to go there? I'm saying inside my head, this guy didn't get the memo that he's really in dangerous territories if he thinks he's going to shake down the most powerful people in the world that are behind my attorney partner. But lo and behold, I said, listen, I'm going to discuss it with my partner and I'll get back to you. I called Patty. I said, this is going on. Minutes, I get a call from Ralph to meet me at Cafe Tabac and let's discuss it. So I knew, I wasn't stupid. That I knew that I had that protection being partners with Patty.
Right.
The legitimate lawyer who I adore. And so what happened at that point is Rob says, what happened? I told him what happened. He started laughing. He was with two other soldiers. I said, why are you laughing? This is pretty serious. It's like, he called me nephew at the time. He says, nephew, I got it.
Yeah, I got your back.
Tell the guy I want to see him at 11 o'clock Friday night and we'll discuss the opportunity. I was like, fuck that. He showed me a bullet. You guys want to discuss the opportunity? But anyway, I walk in the club at 11 o'clock that night. There they are having champagne, having a great old time. Ralph and the Jewish Gangster, having a great old time, champagne, this and that. And I'm like, wow, I guess they don't really care about somebody threatening my life. But literally around 4:30 in the morning, when this guy is all juiced up and drunk, I heard Ralph, it was in the VIP room, there was nobody left in the room. And I went up to him and said, how you guys doing? And he goes, nephew, we're doing well. Thank you. He eyed me to get out, like leave. Literally, I heard Ralph said, here's my counter offer to the offer that you made my nephew. He picks up a 60-pound candelabra that you needed like 3 or 4 hands to pick up.
Yeah.
Ralph is so strong. He picks it up with one hand.
Yeah.
And he hits him right over the head.
Oh, amazing.
And as this happens, the other guys, the other soldier guys escort me out because I'm a civilian. They don't want me to see such a thing. So I left in a taxi. They locked the door. I don't know what happened. It was a fight going on. They got me out of the club before I could see what happened. But I know the guy really got hurt hard.
Yeah.
And the only thing I saw, like I write in my book, is the next day, the only thing that I saw different was that the big area 20-foot carpet was gone. And that was it. And I don't know if it was because it was stained or whatever.
More than likely.
I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah.
But all I know is that these were the stories pre-Giuliani, New York City, and hospitality. You had to decide, Roger, what side of the fence you were going to be on. If you were going to say, you know what, I'm on the side of the fence where I'm just going to cut these guys checks every month.
I know.
Or you're going to sit back and fight it.
Take
and
a stand.
Have those guys and have at least have some of those guys in your back pocket if needed, just out of friendship.
Yes.
Because they were there just for friendship. They may have made an investment through Patty Stisso. I'll never know.
Yeah.
And Rouge made a lot of money. But these are the kind of stories that we dealt with pre-Giuliani in New York City.
That's really amazing. You've shared so much with us. We talked about hospitality. We talked about innovation. We talked about relevance and staying ahead of the curve, creative ideas that really build your business, and your book, Be a Disruptor by Stratis Morfogen. Stratis, you've been a great guest on the podcast. I can't thank you enough for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. I wish you all to stay well. We'll see you again in the next episode. Thank you, Stratis. What an amazing conversation. You are truly a restaurateur. So many great stories, so much great learnings. You've seen it all, and there's so much ahead for you. So we wish you the best of success, and thanks again for joining me on the podcast. Thanks also to this week's sponsors, Plate IQ, Pop Menu, Davo, and Serve, the restaurant training app at srvnow.com. Hope you all stay well. Can't wait to see you next time. Stay tuned.
People go to restaurants for lots of reasons. What the customer doesn't know is the thousands of details it takes to run a great restaurant. This is a high-risk, high-fail business. It's a treacherous road, and smart operators need a professional guide. I'm Roger. I've started many highly successful, high-profit restaurants. I'm passionate about helping other owners and managers not just succeed, but knock it out of the park. You don't just want to run a restaurant. You want to dominate your competition and create a lasting legacy. Join the Academy, and I'll show you how it's done.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.